Tammy Tucson, come on down. Tammy Tucson, come to the front. She hates that.
Can I get a chair that slid back? You know, I already spotted it. Hello.
No, you're gonna just have a seat. Just come on. Yeah, it's supposed to be. Just have it. Yeah, you hold on to that one. Good morning. What's that? All right, set this microphone in that chair right there, Catherine. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. No, got collar problem. Like, no, too loose. Shirt's too big, my collar's too big. All right, where's Catherine going? I know. I mean, my damn clothes. I gotta find somebody that does coats. And I know I'm gonna have to pay. No, can take my.
Oh, take them in.
Yes. I need the Asian lady. That ain't her bag. She
There's
did
a
one.
place over here on Queen City.
I need a night. Yeah.
I wonder if
Catherine.
Catherine. Okay.
All right. We about ready? Catherine Collier, come to the front. All right. Hey, I think we've got, if he wants to sit up here with you, that'll work. If he wants to sit up here with you, we got room. Stay. All right, Catherine, I'll count it. This is informal, so. All right, y'all got mics. All right, we're going to get started. Jimmy Sledge, who's recording for us, has double duty. He's going to record this, but he's got to go at 10:45 to record the service. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, I'm glad everybody's here. I know we got a lot of people that are in Birmingham. I was at a wedding up there last night, and a lot of them were staying in Birmingham. So I said, well, we probably should get somebody up there to do the service this morning at a hotel, so we could accommodate that. So some of them aren't going to be here, so we are recording it for people. But what we wanted to do was to just have a little kind of discussion and recap our trip to Honduras as a way of educating you, and then maybe talking a little bit about what the future holds in terms of a medical mission to Honduras. So a lot of this will be education in terms of the experience, but also in terms of the medical mission trip itself. So we encourage you to ask questions. We have a panel that's going to help us kind of unpack that. This is very informal, so they'll add things as we go. So the first thing we're going to do is you want to hit your Ron Stallings put together the slideshow. Y'all aren't going to be able to see it up here, but so our agenda, we're going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about the travel and the journey getting there, which is interesting in and of itself. All right, Chris, Brandy, y'all come on. Y'all are up here. We're going to talk a little bit about where we stayed, what the food's like, talk about the medical mission, talk about the construction mission, and then talk about the relationship with the kids, and then also talk a little bit about what the future holds, okay? So that's a lot of living that we got to do in 40 minutes now. So we'll do the best we can. So we're going to start with introductions, and for the panel, we have two microphones, that handheld one that passes, Ron. See, So maybe you, Catherine, and the two Catherines, well, you're right in the middle, so you can use either one. So y'all got a handheld, and y'all got this one, so you can pass back and forth. So let's start by introducing ourselves. Use the microphone.
My name's Ryan Stallings. This was my first time
That's good. It's on.
to Honduras, and we had a blast, so I look forward to
We'll get back to the blast
with
part.
y'all.
Just introduce yourself.
I'm Catherine Collier. Happy to go on the Honduras mission trip, and I am a retired associate rector from this church.
All right, and Catherine did a lot of the organizational lifting to make this happen, so she deserves a lot of credit for that. Yeah, and if it's your first time, say it was, well, the rest of you, it was your first time, so, all right.
So I'm Kathy McVinney. I'm a family doctor that works at Bryce, and this was my first trip to Honduras.
Good, all right. Now, take the handheld, there you go. So you three have the handheld, you three have this, okay? All right, hold the microphone up to your mouth. Thanks. No, it's on. He's not speaking up. Speak up, Chris. Speak. All right, let me see, make sure it's on. No, it's not.
Check.
Now, say it.
Chris Berry, this is my first mission trip.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so we do have some pictures. All right. So I'm Paul Pradditt, and I'm the rector here at Christ Church. This was my 10th trip to Honduras. So I went, St. Thomas in Huntsville has had a medical mission for 27 years. So, so they're pretty well organized in the way they do it. Key Sloan brought the medical mission from the Diocese of Mississippi to St. Thomas. So it's been going on for quite some time. So I've been the last 10 years, okay? So basically, other than Catherine, everybody else went for the first time. And it was like one of you decided you wanted to go to Honduras and having lots of questions on the front end and not really sure what was going to happen once you made the commitment. And a friend, I'll show you, Bob Harwell in here, always says, you never know who's going to Honduras until you get on the plane. And these are the people that got on the plane. So we're going to talk about how that happened here, first of all. So we're going to go to travel and journey and just talk a little bit about that. All right, I'm going to get to Ryan's picture over there on the right in a second. So, so just so you know, so the way we get to Honduras is we'll fly. We can fly to Birmingham or Atlanta, and you may fly through Atlanta. But basically, you either go you'll go through Houston to get to Honduras, or you'll go from Atlanta to Honduras. Those are the direct flights. Most of us have gone to San Pedro Sula, which is the largest city in Honduras. I believe that's right. We flew to Tegucigalpa, okay, which is another one of the largest cities. A much nicer airport, interestingly, than the one we normally fly into at San Pedro Sula. But they are airports. I mean, so it's not, it's like any airport you fly into. It maybe doesn't have some of the amenities we're accustomed to, but it's not, part of what I want you to understand is while this has some third world sort of feel to it, it's also pretty much what we're accustomed to. So, all right. So, Catherine, why don't you describe what happened to us trying to get to Honduras? It's on.
So you start getting ready for a mission trip 6 to 8 months in advance, and there's lots and lots of details that you get ready for. And one thing we like to do is travel as a team. So all 11 of us made plans to travel from Birmingham, and we went up the night before, and we were going out early, and it was a major thunderstorm going over there. We all got drenched, everybody's wet, we're checking the hotels, and a thing pops up on my cell phone and it says your flight has been canceled. And you think 6 to 8 months of planning and our flight's canceled, what do we do? So we're in respective hotels and some are on the way and all the things, and we start troubleshooting, and we find out that there are no more flights until the next Tuesday. So we would miss 3 days of our trip. So you can imagine we were a little bit panicked, but teamwork makes the dream work. So what we did was we got online and we looked up all the things and all the flights, and we figured out that we could drive to Atlanta the next day and take a flight out Sunday, and we would only miss one day of our mission. So that's what we did, but it involved planes, trains, and automobiles, really, because we had to figure out how to leave all of our cars in one place, get to Atlanta on groom transportation and a rental car, spend the night in a hotel. Thought we were all in the same hotel. We were in 2 hotels, get to the airport, but we got there. We got there, and it was easy. But that's one of the things about a mission trip. You really have to be flexible. You have to go with the flow. You have to be ready for a big adventure. So it started out as a big adventure, but everybody did a great job. Chris and Brandy get the most extra credit because they went to Birmingham, rented a car, drove to Nashville, flew out of Nashville, met us in Houston, came back to Birmingham, all worked out, but they traveled the greatest distance in the middle of that. And so you just have to be ready for that kind of stuff, and it happens. You're still determined to go. We didn't want to not make the trip, so we made it work. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Does that help?
yeah, just hold on to that. Yeah, so, 8:30 on Friday night, we all get that text that our flight's canceled, and we're not sure, and yeah, the deal was, and they said to us, well, couldn't you just go on Tuesday? And so you're kind of like, well, no, that kind of throws everything off, because you want to have hopefully 4 days there to do the mission work and maybe a 5th day. So Monday through Thursday, you do the mission work. Friday, hopefully you've got kind of a day to do some things. So that was the hope. So we had to scramble. Everybody did an amazing job. We also, Catherine was you and Lewis took a shuttle from Birmingham to Atlanta because y'all were going to drive up day of to fly out. So we had like 3 different groups, but some of us ended up in Atlanta. I mean, this is the group that ended up in Atlanta. This is at the airport in Atlanta, flying out to Houston. That's a picture of Ryan driving on Saturday when we had to rent a car and drive 3 of us and a car full of almost a lot. See, that's luggage right behind his head, full of luggage for us to get to Atlanta so we could catch the flight the next day. So, but on the other hand, as Catherine said, it really was kind of a God moment because we didn't think we were going to make it. It all worked out. We were able to all meet in Houston and then get to Tegucigalpa. So it all worked out, and that's part of it. The one thing I do want to say is just the people that aren't here. I should have reminded you of that. Dina Prince is not here. Dina unfortunately has COVID, so she was unable to come today. Let's see. And then the Dailies from Montgomery, Catherine and John Daly are not here. They had been on several medical missions. They helped kind of organize this. So, and that's what's that? Lewis Fitz, I'm sorry. El Toro. We'll talk about him in a minute. All right. And Lewis is out of town as well. He let us know that he couldn't be here. So, what else about the journey?
It was very smooth.
Okay.
Got on the plane, took to Texas,
Yeah.
got on the plane, got to Honduras. Customs was no problem, surprisingly.
Yeah.
We were warned it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the other part is we all take extra bags. So we all take one bag and then we get another bag because we have to take all of the medicine with us. And then why don't one of you medical people say a little bit about what are the medicines we take?
Just pretty standard routine things like Pepsid, penicillin. I think we had some Zithromax, some Cipro, like different antibiotics.
Okay.
What else? Vitamins, a lot of vitamins, antiparasitics.
Yeah, we need to get Tammy talking. Hold the mic to your mouth, Tammy.
Most of the medications are ones that we find here over the counter super easy, but they don't. And they don't have the access or the resources to purchase them as easily as we do. And we had medications that were more geared towards their children as well as the adults that would come in and geriatric patients or clients that would come in for care. So we were able to generally hit most things that people were coming in with, and I'm assuming that from past experience they knew what the needs were for the community and how
things that happens is that you have to be really careful about the rules, and the rules change year to year with customs and things. And so there's an organization called ARCA that has to approve medications that go into the country. If you go in 4 months, you don't have enough time to get medicines that you take with you, so you have to get them in country. So you have to find a pharmacy that is willing to, get the meds in country. So there were a lot of medicines that we got in country that had to do with blood pressure, blood sugar, things like that were less expensive that we could get there. So the bulk of our money, a lot of our money that was given to us by the diocese was spent on the medications. So the medications that we took in were 8,000 to 10,000 there, and then they were about 4,000 here. So that's a big deal. So starting to think about going and making some donations would be good. The other thing is, Reverend Pratt talked about suitcases. If you have any old big suitcases that are rolling, bring them to us and we'll store them downstairs. That would be great.
Did you just call me Reverend Pratt? Did I do something
I was being
wrong?
kind. No, see, this is the deal. I work for the bishop some, and I have to say Bishop Glenda and Bishop G and Bishop, so I've learned to be just more reverent lately. It's a shocker. It's a real shocker, I know, but yeah,
I'm
being
hurt.
kind.
Okay.
Are you hurt?
No, all right.
Okay.
And we'll talk a little bit more. We added a slide about the expenses for the trip, but in terms of just so they're expenses individually, but the big ones are we raise money for the medicine and then construction supplies, things like that. They're things that we take with us. There are a lot of things we have to buy in country. So one of the considerations for us will be how do we raise the money, to support the trip if that's something we want to do. Obviously, one of the things off the top of my head is our Christ Church Collectibles raises money for outreach ministries. That's one way, certainly. We may want to do some sort of fundraiser. In Huntsville, we had a big fundraiser called Lobster Fest, where we flew in lobsters from Maine, cooked them, had a big fundraiser. We raised about $35,000 every year, give or take. Half of that money went to the medical mission, and we needed pretty much half of that money, which would work out to $17,000, $20,000 on a good year. But medications generally are going to be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range to get them. The other part, though, is that I think it's important that kind of what the medical mission does is a pretty, and lady, you medical people, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a pretty low level of care. I mean, it's kind of almost a triage sort of thing. I mean, people get stuff for parasites, vitamins. I mean, it's pretty, now there are some things that rise to a higher level, and then there are ways to deal with those if they do. We had a surgeon from Huntsville that sometimes, if there was something that needed to be done, simple procedures, he might do them there. But that was the exception. That was not the norm. We'll talk a little bit about how the medical setup happens in a minute. But the next thing we wanted to talk about, and this is important, we wanted you to realize where we stay, okay? Because again, I'm sure there are a lot of preconceptions about, what's it going to look like, and one of the things that's important to me, I've been to Haiti, and that's a real hard experience. Honduras is a little different because you're able to access a hotel, a comfortable hotel to stay in. And for me, at least, with the team, that is critically important. Because the work during the day, the weather this year was the best it's been since I've ever been there because it was not hot. I mean, it was actually comfortable. Part of that is that we were in the mountains. Tegucigalpa is a higher elevation than, say, San Pedro Sula, and we were on the coast. Sometimes when we go, you start sweating the moment you walk out of your hotel room, and you don't stop until you walk back in your hotel room. This was not one of those trips. But it's part of the reason for staying in a comfortable place, so people have a nice bed to sleep in, we can get a good meal. That's part of the fun of the trip as well. So this is where we stayed, in the Florencia. So Brandy, why don't you or Chris talk a little bit about our accommodations? Take the microphone. Talk into the microphone.
Well, it was really nice. I was surprised. I had a daughter that went on a mission trip to Honduras, and she stayed in huts, basically. So I was a little like, oh, we're going to be hot. But we weren't. It was nice. The only thing was, just don't drink the water, use the bottled water. But other than that, the food was great. And I'm slightly a picky eater, but you can get anything there you want here, and then some. But overall, it was great. The pool was, The pool was closed. I'm not, but other than that,
But there was a pool.
There was
supposed
a pool.
to be a
There was a pool on the top, yeah. But other than that, it was really good
Yeah.
overall. So it was not in a hut, and you had running water, and you had air conditioners, and a pillow and clean sheets.
You do drink bottled
Yeah.
water, though.
It was really, overall, it was really nice.
Okay. All right. Anything else about the accommodations? All right. One of the things we do is, in most of the hotels, what they'll do is they serve you breakfast every morning. And breakfast here it was a buffet, but it was big. I mean, it was really good. So it was a really big meal that we had during the day. And I think that's actually a plate up there in the top left corner. So a lot of plantains, a lot of fruit, a lot of beans, a lot of rice. So, but the food was really good. So
And they love 80s rock music.
yeah, a lot of and so
It
this
was
is
in English, so.
so these are some of the other places that we ate. Top left corner was an authentic Honduran restaurant. The ones on top, we actually had the mariachi band that we tried to run off a few times. And then in the middle is a pan pizza we ate in a village on the last day, which was the largest pizza I've ever seen in my life. So we thought we were ordering two larges like you get here, but they were two extra larges in a pan. So so it was but the food's good. All right, and y'all ask questions as we go, if you have any. But so, and then the last night we went. Some of us were able to go to this was it's kind of a 5-star place up in the mountains that overlooked Tegucigalpa. One of the things I've always tried to do is on the last night to have a team dinner at a nice restaurant. And these are some of the pictures. So, and Lewis and Dina both ordered a couple of bottles of French wine. So, all of that to say, again, you have kind of the stuff we do day to day, but then there's also the opportunity to go to some really nice places. Okay? All right, anything about that? All right, let's talk about the mission. Catherine, say a word about setup. So part of what we did the first day was we went there to get set up, and that was on Sunday. Is that right?
Monday.
No, Monday.
Monday morning.
I'm a day behind. It should be on.
So we really did not miss a step. So we get in Sunday, we settle into the hotel, we have dinner, we make a plan for Monday morning, and we had 2 big coaches and drivers that stayed with us all week and looked after us and kind of guarded us and stayed on site with us, which was great. So we pile up all of our suitcases, all of our supplies, and we drive over to the church, which is about maybe 10 or 15 minutes away, and we show up, and they're putting up these big blue tarps for us where people are going to be waiting outside. They've taken all the pews out of the church, the nave of the church, and set outside for people to wait so that we can have the clinic inside. So we immediately just start setting up stuff and say, move this here and move that there. One thing that was a delight, and we try to do, is we have interpreters from a local Episcopal school come with us. So the whole week long we had 10 juniors or seniors in high school with us that were very fluent in Spanish, which was a huge help to us. And so we just all said, do this, do this, do this. And so in about 30 minutes, we had 4 stations for the doctors set up, and we had a huge area for pharmacy all inside the church. And then we had the delightful chore of putting some fans together because it was pretty hot. We got fans, put them together, and then...
Sadly, they put me on that job. So
You did put a fan together.
There
You
were
did a
some
great job.
parts missing to those
You
fans.
did a great job. But anyway, so you just kind of make do with what you have. But the inside of the nave was huge, and we had plenty of space. And then we had to pill pack before we could start the clinic. So you have taken all these medications in and, 500 pill bottles and stuff. And so we just set up everybody all around the church packing pills. And the kids loved it. They were packing pills up on the altar. You'll probably see pictures of that. You'll see them, lined up near the pharmacy. There's a lot of preparation and details that go into it, like taking paper bags and taking cups to dispense parasite meds and blood pressure cuffs and, all kinds of things. And so basically, We just got all the sites set up. Brandy worked out up at the front with Dina, and they set everybody up. Everybody comes in, and they get weighed, and they get, some vitals taken, and they talk about the problem. They go to a provider. So all that we had to pack all the pills before we could have a clinic. We did it so fast by 2 o'clock in the afternoon that we were able to have a clinic on Monday that we didn't expect to have. So we had a clinic Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was pretty much the same setup. But setup was intense, but everybody was great.
Yeah. And we saw, so one of the kind of metrics they try to use is how many patients do you see a day? The goal is to see around 200. So, and you've got, so if you look at in the top left corner, you've got 4 people. We had 3 workstations, correct? I mean, yeah. We had Richard, Catherine, and Tammy were the 3. Kat in the middle was kind of running the clinic. And so we had 3 stations. And as Catherine said, each station has a medical person, an interpreter, and then a place for the patient to sit. So, and they're spread out, and they empty the church out. It's in their church, and you're kind of spread out. So and then you also have a pharmacy, all right? And so one of the needs that we'll have if we go back is for a pharmacist, okay? And Austin Poland's really wanted to go this year, says he wants to go next year. So our hope is that we'll take a pharmacist as well next year. Well, Tammy, why don't you talk a little bit about your work at one of those tables?
The tables, as he said, we were divided up into 3 separate stations as far as the medical personnel goes, and that was where they had basically been triaged in the station that Dina and Brandy were at. And then once we get them, we evaluate them. They explain to us what's going on with them. The interpreter's there to help us as well. But after doing enough of it, just from repetition, you learn the words, and if you can sight read some Spanish, it's helpful. And because you'll see that consistently the people have many of them have similar issues with whether it be the babies have certain things going on with them. There's sometimes a few things that are a little bit different, but not so much. And it works well, and people were very receptive to what we had to say, and we worked in conjunction with the pharmacy, which also had locals that were there to help with that. So we had an outside window that they would come to get their whatever pharmaceutical goods, and then that also allowed us not to have such congestion in the area of the church.
Yeah, so it'd be like taking this room, even though it was a smaller space, and having like 3 workstations, and then having a pharmacy on one side, and then having the intake right in the back corner. So it's all in one room. There's no, I mean, it's all in one room. There's no real privacy. I mean, you're just kind of all together. So it's a lot of chaos, but that's part of what makes it fun and makes it interesting. All right. Any questions about that? Yes. All right, so, and we'll show some pictures. So it's a village, all right, it's where we start. And so go back, Ron, let me go back a couple of slides. There's one, I'll go back one more. One more. Go back another one. All right, in the bottom right corner is, those are all 3 female clergy. So the lady on the left is the priest at the village church. The lady on the right works for the diocese and was one of our liaisons. So what we do, and part of the kind of the evaluations, well, the first thing is we talk to Bishop Allen, Lloyd Allen, who's the Bishop of Honduras. I went to seminary with Lloyd in Austin, Texas. He's been the Bishop of Honduras for 30 years, I believe. In fact, we're going to have him come here, I think in the spring. Next spring, he'll be in country. He spends a lot of his time in the United States raising money. He says he always loves to tell me this, they have 170 congregations. That's a bit of a misnomer because some of those congregations are 5 people and they've got a deacon. So the reality is there are very few sort of big churches, but this is a decent sized village church. So in the village, normally, and in this village, there's a school right next door to the church, okay? So you kind of have all of that together. So you have this group of people that you can reach out to and tell them that you're coming. They're responsible for helping to promote this, not only in their village, but in surrounding villages. And that's what I was going to say. We would like to see 200 people a day, so 800 people over 4 days. We saw 70 a day. So that's a discussion we've got to have, and Lloyd will be a part of that. If we go back, we may or may not go back to this village. We may go to another one, where we could maybe see more people. The whole lot, and part of what you do is, there's a limit to what you can do in a week. You come and you're there for a week, and then you kind of disappear. One of my interests has always been, and we did this in Huntsville, is the school. Because if you get involved with the school, you're talking about something that really it can be transformative. We started adopting kids in Huntsville, paying for their education to continue, because they only get a public education through the 6th grade. After that, everything's privatized, and you got to pay for it. Now, it's not expensive there. You can pay for a whole semester of school and what we might spend in a week. So there's a difference. But they also have trade schools, which we got involved with, trying to get kids trained, which in Huntsville, they're now seeing kids that are actually now working, leaving their villages, going to the city, and they're working. And that, to me, the medical, this part, it helps. There's no question. But in some respects, it's a bit of a Band-Aid. But it's the other part that I think is really important that we'll talk about in a minute, are the relationships. And as Bob Harwell likes to say, the touch, when we go and we are in relationship with people there. So, yeah. Does that answer your question, Ann? Yeah. Yeah. So they probably did not promote it as well as they needed to do. I'm not blaming them. It's just trying to figure out what we need to do differently. So, all right. Anything else about the medical mission part? Chris, you're up. Look, so I wanted to play Green Acres when this came on with Dina right there, but we couldn't figure it out. But so most churches go and do a medical mission. But if you take, say, we had 12 people. If you take 25 people, which is about an average size for one of these, you need to figure out other things for people to do, because you don't want people just to stand around. And one of the things that's always an option is to look at kind of where they are, ask them what they need. And what they told us they needed was to repair they called it an outdoor classroom. You probably would call it something very different from your experience. But that's what we decided to take on. And so Chris and Lewis really took that project on. That, if you don't know, Chris works for Alabama Power, so we had an electrician, which was important. And then Lewis, being Lewis, does a little bit of everything. So pairing the two of those together with this structure really worked out to be a great project. And we'll say a little bit about how you get supplies in Honduras. All right, Chris, go ahead. Just talk about what y'all did.
Well, it was.
Is your microphone on? All right, good. Well, speak up then.
It's almost like a dog kennel outside, because it was block and it was chain link fence, but we had to put a new roof on it. So.
Right.
But that was probably the most fun we had, was going to the hardware store every morning. We had to go 4 times, and trying to get the things that we needed, and then the lumber store next.
All right, Ron, go back. So if you look in the middle picture, that's the structure that Lewis and Chris are working on. So it was brick down, and it had chain link fence around the middle, and then the roof.
Yeah.
So y'all took the roof off. We went and bought more tin, from what I learned, a heavier grade of tin,
Yeah.
to put the roof back on, and then you rewired the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was no electricity. It wasn't working.
Yeah, that's right. But we rewired and put new lights in and new plugs, and
And did you, when you stood on a rubber tire, what was that, to test it? Is that?
No, that was to make it back up, because I never could kill it from the building, so I had to make it up hot. And I don't know if it they got a picture of that, but I had to stand on a pile of rubber wire so I wouldn't be grounded when I made it up.
So that's an example of the way things get done in Honduras. It's not always exactly the way we do things here, but it's and it's kind of part of the fun.
It was, yeah. I enjoyed working with Lewis the whole week.
Yeah.
And Ishmael, the guy that is in the picture on the left,
Yeah,
because when we first got there, he was cutting grass with a machete,
yeah.
like all the way around the church.
Which is what they do. Again, it's a different perspective. They do a lot of their lawn maintenance with the machete, which again, people walk up and they're carrying machetes. You know, that's just kind of where you are.
And
So,
the tree trimmers that cut that tree down when they first started, they were cutting.
and did we get a
limbs
picture?
off with
So one of the things so my job was to handle the money, which is probably not a good thing. But, and when they find out who the person is that has the money, that's when the negotiations begin. Because they would come to me and say, you know, hey, do you have a minute? And so what that meant was they had a project that they wanted to propose. So one of the projects was, we'll show some pictures of the school in a second, and these are better pictures of the structure. See, and if you look in the top right one, that's Lewis standing in the middle. That is Lewis Fitz standing on top of that corrugated tin roof. And in the bottom right, that's Chris wiring that thing, standing on a ladder. So at any rate, we built this thing and we noticed there were these trees that were overhanging not only that structure but a school. And so we asked them to go and find somebody that maybe could cut the trees back for us. These are big trees, and if those of you that have tried to get tree work done in your yards, it's obscene the prices they charge to cut a big tree. And I had a proposal at our house, and it was a couple of $1,000. So I said, get us a number, you know, and see what we need to do. And they came back, and the number was, it was $65.
$65 for 2 trees to be taken down.
Yeah, total. So quickly, but yeah, we wanted to see if they'd come back with us to the States and do some work. But what happened then was we came outside and there were two guys that had chainsaws hooked to their pants. They were basically crawling up, tied off with a rope, and cutting the trees down. So we're not sure if the structure. I'm trying to get a picture of the structure to make sure it's still standing. But again, that's just kind of part of the way they do things there. So it was nice for us to be able to go and put this facility back in order. And by the time that we had finished, and we weren't quite done, it was going to be a very functional structure. The other thing that we were going to do was buy, because they basically use it as a storeroom, and we were going to buy some outdoor furniture to go in there that they could use, so they would have a classroom. You know, and they were really, in all seriousness, they were really excited to have this space because, you know, what you saw was the church, and that's their church. That's it. That's everything. They did have baños, bathrooms in back, which we negotiated getting those fixed because they didn't work. Who wants to talk about using the toilet at the church? Yeah.
It was I don't know how these people live like this. We are so fortunate. It literally was a toilet in the middle of a room with a sink that had a 55-gallon drum behind it, and the idea was like a Clorox bottle they'd cut the top out of, and you scoop your own water after you use the restroom, and you just pour it in, and eventually it drains out. There's no flushing, there's no nothing. Me and Dana Fritz were like, oh boy, this is interesting. I mean, that will definitely humble you very fast there. And they live like that in this village. Yeah, you couldn't put your toilet paper in the toilet bowl. You could in your hotel. Your hotel was like here, but there you could not. And that whole village lives like that. One of the girls that helped us in triage, she does that every day. And she's probably 20 years old. She's a medical student, I believe.
Yeah.
But their whole family, that's all she's ever known. So it will definitely humble you, and thank you for flushing toilets and running water.
But again, one of the things we talked to them about was, and part of it was getting so the toilets were that way because they weren't working because they hadn't been able to get them working. So one of the things we talked to them about was paying to get the toilets fixed in the church so that they could use them. And again, that's one of the things that we could do because we had the resources, okay? And then they asked me, so then in the negotiation for the toilet, they wanted to know if they could move it from the middle of the room to the side, which would require knocking, getting a jackhammer and taking all the concrete out and starting over. And I said, no, we fixed the toilet, and that was they could keep it in the middle of the bathroom. So, but there are a lot of things that happen on the medical mission that do make you appreciate what you have here, which is part of the reason I've always liked to take youth on these trips, if possible, for students. I think the perspective for them is really amazing, okay, for the very reasons kind of that Brandy's articulating. So, okay, let's keep going. I know we got it. And then, all right, real quick, all right, go back one slide. Chris, say something about the gift we gave to, what's his name? Ishmael. Yeah, and back to the cutting grass with a machete.
Yeah, when we first got there, he was cutting grass with a machete, and it's like this tall. And then we got him a weed eater.
The whole deal.
Yeah, the gas.
Got him a gas can. Got him a weed eater.
We don't have a picture of that.
It's in there somewhere,
Oh,
but
okay.
well, all right. Well, let's keep.
Yeah, he was super excited about that.
And then just one other thing about when you go to buy supplies, which you probably need to organize that as best you can. It can take forever. I mean, it is Central America. They do things kind of on a different schedule. They're pretty laid back about the way things happen, and things can always change. So that's just something you need to be aware of. But it's always fun to go because it's an adventure going to the store. All right, let's keep going. All right, and probably the biggest thing that everybody talks about are their relationships that you build. And I'm going to start with Ryan because one of the things that Ryan did was developed a relationship with all the interpreters built around his knowledge of the international soccer community. So, Ryan, why don't you say something about that?
Sure. Thanks. Can y'all hear me
Yeah.
on this? So, I'm not a good handyman, so I don't really, electricity's not my thing and other things. So I was trying to figure out what I could do to help and just try to make myself available. But from the first time we met our interpreters, they're from the high school, the Episcopal High School in Tegucigalpa. And so, I just got with them, and I couldn't speak any Spanish really, but I did know a lot about soccer, love soccer, and so we just started talking about soccer and different teams. And so from that, it's almost like you can speak their language if you can relate to a few different kids. And so there were a lot of children that showed up from the school in the afternoons or that were coming to get seen, and there was some downtime for the kids. And so when one of the trips we took to the store, bought a bunch of soccer balls and wanted to hand those out. So I'm playing soccer. I tried to as much as I could with the kids up there, and they were showing me really what to do other than me showing them. So it's really neat to kind of bond with them, and have, over a love of soccer, you can almost communicate with people. And so the next day we would be there, you'd see some of the same kids.
All right, keep going.
Yeah. And so.
All right, Catherine, say something about the schools. All right, grab.
So the church that we're at has its own kindergarten with about 20 kids in it, and they told us that ahead of time. So we got some Bible buddies stuff from here, and Paul and I went over and taught them a lesson and played with them and danced with them, and we had arts and crafts, and it was great fun. And
Go to
then
the next
behind
slide,
the
Ryan.
church is a K, like 1 through
One more.
12 school, and so we went over 2 different days and had like 300 children one time and 350 the next, and taught them hand hygiene, which is what the priest asked us to do, and also dental hygiene. One of the things that was great about this trip is that we were gifted with like a couple thousand toothbrushes, and we took them all, and we also took a lot of treats, and so we would go over and
Go to the
teach them
next
those
page.
things, and they thought that was great fun, and they would dance and sing to us. Is that what we've got in the background?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
kindergarten kid. We went to the kindergarten. That's in the top left corner. Well, it's in the bottom right corner of the right side as well. Yeah, so the kindergarten was connected to the church, and then there was a school that was right off of the church property. So they were all kind of right there.
Right. Ryan left them soccer balls, and then also everybody got a couple of toothbrushes and some treats. So that's another thing that all of you can help with on a trip. Even if you're not going, you can donate toothbrushes and stickers and toys and small things like that we can give out. They don't have toys, and they love things like that. So there are lots of collecting things that we could do ahead of time.
Okay. All right, keep going. What we got next? All right. Look at all those angels, man. Look at Tammy and Catherine and Ron. Y'all all got wings. All right, I want to just, so over here on the right, I just want to make you aware, this is a man named Bob Harwell. Bob was a member of, he's a member of St. Thomas in Huntsville. He's a friend. He was the president of Trustmark Bank in Huntsville. He's retired now. He's working in the Diocese of Honduras as a liaison between that diocese and this diocese. He's actually, I think, in Huntsville now, but he's about to go back to Honduras. So he kind of helps us organize ourselves in trips. And so I hope to have him come at some point as well to talk about what's down there, what's available as we get ready to, if we want to decide we want to go back. So, but he's a great resource, and he loves it. And one of the things that he always talks about, a couple of things. One is he wants people to work hard and do the work. But he also wants people to have an enjoyable experience. And that's why I think the fun it needs to be a part of this as well. You want to do the work, but you also want people to experience the country. And so part of what we did on the last day was and I'm not sure why Ryan put that picture in the middle of me sitting in the van. I think it's because the seat is back in my knees. But part of what we did is we went to a village called the City of Angels. What's the name in Spanish? Yeah, all right, yeah. So, I need to just be honest. This was the day that Lewis got sick and the day that Dina got sick. So sometimes that happens, and they basically stayed in their rooms. You know, we were a little concerned about getting them home. You know, the thing about a medical mission is somebody gets sick, you happen to have doctors with you. So you do have some medical people, which is always a big help. It happens on occasion, doesn't always happen. There are lots of possible reasons.
Was it intestinal? I think it was.
We're not, go ahead.
There had been a flu going around that had the congestion and the stomach.
That's right.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And that's what they had. So I think they just caught a bug from being in that condition.
Yeah, the flu was, when we got there, we were told the flu was kind of running rampant in Tegucigalpa. So that was going on. Lewis, we thought might have had COVID. We're not sure, but Lewis being Lewis just sucked it up and toughed it out and said, you know. Now, we did have medical and flight insurance if we had to evacuate somebody, which some missions have had to do on occasion. That's the exception. That is not the norm. You know, now they call me dog stomach, so because I don't follow too many guidelines in terms of eating and things like that. And I haven't gotten sick yet. Now probably means the next time I go, I won't be. Yeah, and then there's some things you can do in preparation to go down there, but the other part, again, from experience, having medical people with you is a big help. You know, so you're not, but at any rate, we went and spent a day kind of seeing some things. This is one of the Catholic churches in Tegucigalpa, and in the middle picture, if you look, it was the day after the Pope was elected, and they already had a picture of the Pope up in the church. So, and it's also in the bottom right corner is where they have an icon called the Black Madonna that people really do kind of pilgrimage to this church to go see. So we went to do that, and then keep going, Ron. Yeah, and this is in the city of the Angels, Villa de Angeles. Yeah. So we kind of walked around the village. So you look in the top left corner, that's the way their electricity looks. Yeah, having Chris was really handy. So, all right, keep going. All right, so let's talk a little bit. All right, anything else about the mission y'all want to say?
I'd say if you have just a little
Use your microphone.
If you have just a little inkling of going, I would suggest you do it. As you saw my face in that travel picture, you know, there's a lot of going with the flow, and I'm not the best at that, but doing that and seeing how God takes care of you through it is really helpful. So I would suggest and encourage, if you have an inkling to go, that you should sign up.
All right. Anybody, Catherine?
Another thing is that you heard how many people hadn't gone before. But I can tell you it builds relationships in the church that these guys say hi and talk and chat in the hall, and they didn't know each other that well before
Yeah.
that. And year after year of 11 or 15 people going, it gets quite a crew, and people tell people, and it's a huge adventure. And they know each other in a different way than they did before they went on that trip. So that's a really great side effect. It's just developing relationships.
Yeah, and part of what you do is we eat breakfast every day together. We have lunch in the village, and so they had somebody that would cook our meals and bring them to us. Sometimes we handle that differently, but that's the way we did it this year. And then at night, we try to go out somewhere as a group, as a team. Obviously, if you would like to have a drink at night, that's possible. I need to make sure all you Episcopalians know that. Sometimes people, and when there's in Huntsville, place we stayed in, we used to go on those missions, had a nice pool. So every afternoon we'd get back to the hotel, everybody would gather around the pool. Some people had a gin and tonic, had a glass of wine, had a beer, whatever, around the pool and visited. That's a big part of it, And then we'd go have dinner. So the relationship building really is a significant part of that. So, all right, anybody have any questions? All right, so the future. So part of what we've got to decide is, one, is this something that we want to continue to do? I mean, what I hear is that we'd like to continue, to look at doing this. The idea this year was they asked me and asked Catherine to help kind of organize a diocesan-wide mission. The response was not very good to that, honestly. And so part of what I thought while we were there was, well, maybe this is just something we should be thinking about and doing as Christ Church. So that's kind of where we are now. So part of what we'll do is think about where we go, what it's going to take, start to really do some planning in terms of budget. All right, Ryan, go to the next slide. So just give you an idea of kind of this, we copied kind of something that Catherine sent us. Just an idea in the middle, it says the cost for the trip. What it costs for an individual is a flight, which was around $700 this time. And then what we did, which is a little different than I've done other places, but it worked, is that everybody just paid a flat fee, and then we paid for everything out of that. The church did. All the transportation, all the meals, all the insurance, hotel rooms, all of that. I took a church credit card, and we paid for all of that, so you didn't have to fool with that. People took a little extra spending money, but you just don't spend a lot while you're down there. There's just not a lot to spend it on. And that people, did it end up being $800, Catherine, for the So really the trip probably ended up being about $1,500, $1,600, give or take. And then the other part to think about is, do we raise enough money to help, for people that might not be able to afford the whole trip, to scholarships, things like that. Those are all things for us to talk about and think about. But the next decision is, is this something that we want to do? My father used to always say, and he firmly believed this, and I suspect some of you have heard him, he used to say the mission field is right outside the church door. There's a lot of truth to that, and that's how I was raised. But when I started going to Honduras, my thinking, I think, changed a little bit, because I think these are beneficial experiences. They're different than some of the work we do here in town, as you would expect. But I think there's a lot of benefit to going on these sorts of trips, because there is certainly poverty a few blocks away from this building, but there's something about being in that place and seeing some of what those people deal with that I think is really helpful. So part of what we'll do, I think, in the next few months is start to really, make a decision. Time-wise, the window we used is a pretty good window. Easter is earlier next year. We got backed up and bumped up a little bit against graduation stuff, which is probably a problem. We could go a little bit earlier. We could go in the summer, but in the summer, it gets hot. June, July, going right now, it's hot down there. That's another consideration. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just a different dynamic when you're down there. Yes?
I went 100 years ago with Dr. Jerry White.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was really a life-changing experience.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I'm too old to go now, but
I'm not sure about that, but part of what Catherine said, I think one of the things we'd want to do is figure out a way to include people that are here that aren't able to go, and that's something that we didn't do as much of with this trip as we could have, in terms of age, if somebody's mobile and can get around, it's doable. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but but the heat is something to think about for sure. So yeah. All right. Anything else? Any questions? Is this helpful? So thank y'all. Yeah. And thanks to Christ Church for all you did to help make this possible. All right.